اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي.
Thank you, Professor Datuk Dr. Ahmad Kamil Manimbira for your presentation. So now we will go to our third session, which is the Q&A. And if you like to directly ask the question and to speak and ask the question, please raise your hand. And otherwise, you can also type in your question in the Q&A function of the webinar. Okay, we already have a few questions. We'll have a read to the panelists to answer it. The first question is coming from our, I think, brother Bambang. If banks can create money, so how do some banks can bankrupt? Thank you. So maybe Datuk Manaf can answer the question first, yeah?
The practitioner.
Thank you, Prof. And thank you, Mr. Bambang, for the question. Well, the thing is this: once the money is created, it goes into the system. Okay. At the time of creation, the money is created from the debt, but the moment the bank credits into, let's say, our account, then we can use it. Yeah. So then the bank also have to make sure that whoever that they have given the loan to continues to pay for the loan. If that loan is not paid, then they will have a lot of bad debts. Then they have to cover, because their balance sheet, there will be a shortfall. So when there is a shortfall, then they have to borrow from the interbank market. So if they have too much of a bad loan, like the example that I gave in the US, or even in Indonesia during the crisis, then the interbank market will not want to lend to them. So their rates will be very high. I remember in 1987, the interbank overnight rates was as high as 24%. So if your loans, and at that point of time, the lending rates were fixed rates. Yeah? So if you have loan to a customer at 10%, and then the interbank rates are at 24%, then on a daily basis, you're already losing 14%. So the loss is because of the credits or the loans that given to their clients, which are of not good quality. So that will result the bank in having losses. I hope that answered the question.
Okay, thank you, Datuk.
Can I add? May I add to that this thing?
Yeah, sure.
Please, Prof. Yeah.
From this thing, Dato is nicely as one thing I can add to that is, for example, in the classical this thing, if you notice, through the fractional reserve banking of the classical one, so when the bank is allowed to give out more loans, it means create credit, more credit as money, compared to the actual amount of money deposits, deposits they have. So if everyone want to suddenly queue up and then ask the deposits or money in the form of money, that means those who are given even loan, you have your credit account, isn't it? So if all the creditors of the bank will queue up to ask for money, then definitely there will not be enough money to give, all right? So the bank can go bankrupt. So the original word for bankrupt is actually started for banks, when the bankers will break their bench or whatever, So that is a bank run. So bank run only, that's when the central banks will come in as the lender of the last resort, so that banks will not be seen as defaulting, number one. The number two is that when people pay back the loan, let's say you've taken a loan and then when you pay back the loan, then the money created also gets cancelled in accounting. So let's say you took a loan and you are unable to pay back the loan. If the account is cancelled, and then let's say foreclosure or whatever is done, so when people start to default on their loans, so it will reduce the amount of money in the economy. That will make difficulty for other borrowers to pay back the loan also. So as the economy goes down and down, there's a lack of money, liquidity in the economy. So therefore, ultimately, there will be a large amount of liquidity loss in the economy. So that is the reason why we notice in the 2008 housing crisis in America, while the people were defaulting on their housing loans and domino effect was created, on the financial side, the banks were at all, they were, the capitalization was gone. So that is the reason 700 billion was created in order to recapitalize the bank. So it's all the structure of how the monetary system has been created. The banks can go bankrupt. Yeah.
Hilmi,
Ya, Dato'.
Hilmi, okay. I think if Mr. Bambang can just quickly raise his hand. Is he from Indonesia? Because if he's from Indonesia, I want to show a slide. Mr. Bambang, just pop up your hand and then if
Here, I already give him permission to talk. Mr. Bambang, would you like to have a chat with us?
Yes, yes, I'm from Indonesia.
all right. Okay, let me show you one slide. Let me show you one slide, Mr. Bambang. Okay, can you see this?
Yes, yes, I can.
Okay, this is okay. I'm very close to Indonesia because I do some business in Indonesia since 2008 until now. So I go to Indonesia very regularly. So in 1997, before the 97 crisis, the Indonesian rupiah to US dollar is 2,000 rupiah on average. 2,000 rupiah to $1 US.
Yes.
Okay. Then assuming that if I mean at that point of time, I think there's quite a number of big Indonesian companies that borrowed US dollar. Okay. So and then if let's say at that point of time a salary of a employee in Indonesia is 2 juta, 2 million rupiah. If 2 million rupiah, that means in US dollar, the salary is 1,000. Yeah, 2 million rupiah. Before the crisis, the salary is 1,000 US dollar. After the crisis, because it went up to 18,000, there was overnight transaction, 18,000 rupiah. That means it dropped 9 times. The US dollar becomes, I mean, if you are to change that into US dollar, instead of getting 1,000, you're only getting 142 ringgit. So in terms of purchasing power, let's say if you sell something to outside of Indonesia, let's say you sell one item, the cost is 2,000 rupiah because 2 million rupiah because you have to pay salaries in rupiah. So you sell an item in 2 million rupiah, you get payment 1,000 rupiah. But after the crisis, the same item you sell, you're only getting 142 US dollars and they can buy the same item from you.
Yeah, yeah.
So how much in terms of slavery? So now the Indonesians becomes a slave to the world that has the currency that is bigger than Indonesia. Another example, if you have 24 million, if you have 24 million asset of cash, at that point of time, you would before the crisis, you will be worth 12 million US dollar. Yeah. If after the crisis that 24 million rupiah is only worth $2 million if you convert into rupiah. So if you have a loan, so if you look what happened to Indonesia, Indonesia had a 140 billion loan. You have 140 billion loan with US. Yeah. So 140 billion loan, my calculator pun, it's difficult to calculate. I think at that point, because of 2,000 rupiah to $1 US, is about 70 trillion. But after the crisis, it became, that typo error, 840 trillion. So the government have to tax your people, the population or the citizen of Indonesia, 84 trillion to pay the same 140 billion US dollar loan. So imagine now you have become a slave to the banks in US that you have borrowed. So that's how countries can fail. Not just countries, but the banks can fail because of this currency crisis. Because and Indonesia, I know, as I said, I spent about already 13 years in Indonesia. Indonesia is a very rich country. What commodity that you don't have? You have the people, almost 300 million. Name a commodity, almost every commodity you have. But in the outskirts of Jakarta, you know, you are still trying to grow. When I went to Indonesia in 2008, even electricity, you have one of the biggest coal reserves, but electricity, some places is still very dim. You know, so this is because of the monetary system.
It's controlled by the corrupt government and by foreign powers.
Yes,
To
correct.
people.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. Inshallah, I will be there after COVID.
Okay. Thank you, Dato', Prof and Brother Bambang. Okay. So I think we have a question from our brother Shem Hussein. So please, Brother Shem, please ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Yeah, my question is, as the fiat money itself is riba due to its virtual nature. So when you compare with doing like when you're trading with fiat money, do we still get the riba sin because we are dealing with fiat money? And also when you compare it with, like, for example, you give someone a loan with fiat money and then you pay back more, like 10% more, any difference between these two sins?
Prof? Okay. All right. There's two parts to your question. Yeah, the first part is whether using fiat money is a sin. Okay, I go by Surah Al-Maidah verse 3. In Surah Al-Maidah verse 3, Allah says blood and pork and several other things you cannot eat. Yeah, but in times of what do you call emergency? Not emergency. In times of darurah is what do you call it? Helmi, can you help me? What's the word for darurah?
Darurah.
Emergency.
Emergency.
No.
When there is no food, I mean for pork, when there is no food, then you can eat pork. Okay, pork is generally haram for Muslims, but when there is no food, then you can eat pork. But it does not mean you can eat as much as you want. You only eat enough to survive, and at the same time, you will need to look for alternatives. Yeah. So today's monetary system is a situation that we cannot avoid because it's not controlled by Muslims anymore. You know, the whole world is using a monetary system which is riba based. So this is not a fatwa, this is just my opinion. If I use verse 3, of course, riba is worse than eating pork, but because there is no choice, you know, then you just have to use it. So this is where I think God knows, you know, our intention. Yeah. But the second question, where you give a loan and you take 10% more, that is definitely riba. Yeah, that is definitely riba. But to use paper money today, I would say no. Okay, I want to put in another issue in the sense that since I stated that Islamic banking is the same, then what alternative do you have if you want to buy a car, you want to buy a house? I still stand by Al-Maidah verse 3, in the sense that you take only, I mean, if you want to buy a car, you don't buy a Mercedes. You know, if you can afford only to pay a small car, then take a small car. So you minimize the amount of riba that you have to take. You know, because there is no choice today, because that is the system that we are in. You know, that is the system. Why I'm speaking against the Islamic bank is because when they say it is Islamic, then all the Muslims will just go to the bank, and the amount of borrowings by the Muslim community today has gone through the roof, because we say it's not riba. But there is not a single sentence from the non-Muslims, you know, the bankers that understand this thing, to say that, hey, what you're doing is the same as what you're doing. You call it trade, but it's not actually a trade. Which is why today, even the non-Muslim are setting up Islamic banks because they want us to be their customer. You know, so which is why I speak out against Islamic. I would say that say it is riba, so that the Muslims do not go overboard in terms of their borrowings. They only take whatever is necessary. That if you go through Surah Al-Maidah, Allah says, you know, He knows best. Thank you, Zaid.
Yeah. Can I ask 2 more questions? Is that okay?
Sure.
You like, for example, the Turkish currency, it loses a lot of value, and like there's like high inflation. So like if you borrow 100 Turkish lira and you could buy 100 breads with it, but maybe after 1 year with that 100 lira, you can only buy 50 breads. So some scholars are saying that charging interest at the inflation level, at the inflation rate, is not riba, it's not interest. What is your opinion about that? Is it still interest or not, if it's below the inflation rate?
Okay, firstly, I will repeat what I stated in my slide, where our Prophet ﷺ said, any loan with a benefit is riba. Okay, so on that basis, it is already riba. How some of the scholars wants to, give a fatwa that because the interest rate the inflation rate is too high, your 100 lira today, it doesn't have the same value in 1 year's time. I think this is the time. I mean, Allah has already said He's waging war. To me, these things are war by Allah against us. So the Muslim community need to realize that relying on the current monetary system, you know, we will face all these problems. But imagine, Hussein, that if you have 100 lira today, and you go out there and buy gold, yeah, with whatever amount gold that you can get, yeah. Let's say, I don't know what's the exchange, what is the selling price of gold at your end, you know. But if you, let's say, with 100 you can buy 1 ounce of gold, and you wait 1 year's time, you sell that gold is going to give you the value on that day itself, which could be 1,000 lira. So this is what I'm saying. Especially in situations like this, do not keep your money in paper form. Yeah, because there's a lot to learn from Argentina. Argentina had this crisis, and Greece had this crisis in 2008. Argentina had this crisis since the 1980s, where the inflation rate, you know, goes through the roof. So what they do is, the moment they get their salary for the day, because salaries are being paid on a daily basis, the moment they get their salaries, they will go and buy, some items. They will buy electricity bulbs, they buy, rice, they buy meat, because by tomorrow, the price is definitely going to go up. So if you are in this situation, do not keep your money, because by tomorrow you're going to lose value.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And my final question is, Bitcoin. Do you think Bitcoin is halal or haram? I don't know if it's been discussed before. I haven't been in this group before, so I've been doing a lot of research in this. And even if you say it's haram, if you do say it's haram, is it at least better than fiat if you compare it between fiat? Because fiat has no instructive value and Bitcoin in a way has a bit more instructive value. What's your opinion, please?
Okay. Firstly, Firstly, let's say you have a million bitcoins, which value will be say about 56 million or 60 million, yeah, dollars, and tomorrow there's no electricity, or your Wi-Fi is down.
Mhm.
What is the value of your Bitcoin?
Zero.
Zero. So I think you've got the answer, yeah.
Jazakallah.
What about Prof? Maybe Prof Kamil want to add something to answer the question as well?
Maybe a little bit I can say on the Bitcoin. It's a cryptocurrency, right? Actually, if you notice, Brother Hussein, it is similar to fiat money. Only that fiat money is issued by commercial banks. Commercial banks are also private entities, mostly. So if the Bitcoin also issued by actually private entities, but here at least the commercial banks are governed by the central bank. Here you don't know who is. No one is actually regulating the any. But the important thing to notice is that there's a big difference. The difference is, the paper money that we use, national money, we accept it as money because of the legal tender law. There's a law saying that you have to accept. But Bitcoins, people are buying and selling on their own will. So they're using it as the, individuals are transacting, using it to buy things and so on. So that's the difference. But both are actually fiat. So once both are fiat, it is highly volatile, because there's nothing behind. Just like Dato, I was asking what will happen suddenly there's no electricity, there's suddenly no value, right? So it can become very volatile in any. So if you ask me what will ultimately will happen to Bitcoin, it's just like in history we had the Dutch tulip, tulip bulb, the flowers, the value will go up, and one day it will just become nothing. We don't know when that will happen. So it is, I would say, since because it's not backed by anything real, it is still money because anyone who uses it as money is still money. So once people use it as money, then the rules of exchange, rules of SARF, and rules of exchange will be applicable, including rules of Riba, all will become applicable. But it's not an Islamic money in my perspective. Okay.
Yeah, but the thing with Bitcoin is it avoids the central banks.
Yes.
So there is that benefit. So in that way, you're more away from the riba part.
Correct.
And also some instructive value, like with paper money, there's no value, but with Bitcoin, you have to go through lots of calculations. That's why it uses a lot of electricity to bring you a crucial code that no one else can steal it.
Yes.
So there's work behind it. There's some effort behind it rather than just printing.
Exactly.
So would you agree that there is some instructive value in Bitcoin?
There is no intrinsic value. There is no intrinsic value, but then the system rewards you for providing a service. Then because you do the checking and so on, right? So to the miner. So for that, the system rewards once you discover the crypto key, isn't it? Yeah. So that is the difference. But then to find the crypto key, so much of electricity is actually wasted in the process. Yeah. There are countries like Venezuela. They have issued a blockchain, it's cryptocurrency, but backed by asset like petroleum. So they have, Venezuela did that. The government did that. So it is a cryptocurrency backed by petroleum, and there's also a cryptocurrency, for example, in the Dubai, the 1 gram, which is a cryptocurrency backed by 1 gram of gold. So those are actually, in my opinion, very good. Where when the cryptocurrency is backed by a real asset, then it fulfills the criteria of Islamic money, in my opinion.
Jazakallah khairan. I appreciate your feedback. Thank you to both of you.
Hussein, I just want to add a couple of points. Number one, if we say money has got some definitions. Number one is a means of exchange accepted by everyone, and thirdly, accepted by the community, and thirdly, it must be stable. So if you look at a Bitcoin, it's not stable in terms of the price. So I wouldn't call it money, even though you can use it for exchange, but I wouldn't call it money, but I would call it just a financial commodity. So it's not money per se.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Brother Sham. I think there is one question related to the, since Datuk Manap mentioned about currency exchange, there is a question from Brother Irfan on exchange of currency. If we get more, is it halal for us or not? On currency, when we do the currency exchange, if we get more, what is the status of the money that we receive from when we're doing the currency exchange? If we get more, yeah.
Meaning what?
Meaning, maybe for example, today if I change with US dollar, maybe I get $4 for example in ringgit. But let's say suddenly the exchange rate become very high, and then we got 4.5 ringgit for every dollar. So the additional of that, what is the status?
No. Okay, it's the example that I gave about Indonesia. Just before the crisis is 2,000 rupiah, $1 US. Yeah. After the crisis is 15,000 rupiah for $1 US. So if I have $1 US today, yesterday I went go to the to exchange it, I get what do you call 2,000 rupiah. Yeah. But after the crisis, I go and exchange $1 US, is 15,000 rupiah. That is the price on that day. So it is not, that is not riba, because it is the price on that day. It's just like we have let's say 10 US dollar. We go and buy something today, a bag of rice. Yeah, maybe we get 5 kilos for it. And after a couple of days, because of shortage of supply, the price of rice has gone up. So you only get 2 kilos. That is not riba. It is because it's based on pricing, demand and supply. Essentially, what Islam is pushing for. Remember, we are talking about just. In order to be just, it must be a free marketplace. So the marketplace decides the price.
You can want to add anything, Prof. Kamil?
I may add, for example, let's say you want to go for Umrah, for example. So we need to exchange, for example, the ringgit ataupun rupiah. We have to change it to real first, then only we can go. So exchanging to a different currency is necessary. We have to exchange if you want to do international trade or you want to go for to a different country and so forth. Yeah. But just like Dato was saying, remember in one of the slides Dato was saying, the riba, when Prophet ﷺ was describing on the riba on the dates, change it for money first, then use the money to buy the other day. In other words, you must have a reason for the transaction. You must do the transaction for the reasons. So if you really need, you need to change ringgit to real for what? Or because I need to go for Umrah. But if I think, oh, okay, tomorrow maybe the real might go up. So today I buy it. Then I wait and see. So they're speculating on this thing. You don't really need you're sitting there speculating. And the volatility in the forex market, it actually it causes a lot of other markets to to go into volatile also. So it creates a lot of volatility in the many markets, including stock markets, and so that's why we should not be actually involved in the currency speculation, especially currency trading. You really need actual true transaction. Then you have to go, because there's no other way currently for us. So that's my addition.
Thank you, Prof. and Dato. I think I've been told that among the attendees there is scholars as well. So if you'd like to add, give the answer, please raise your hand and we can allow you to speak. To provide the answer as well. So then the next question is that from Brother Fakir. Am I right in understanding this, that countries can print more money and take control of the world? I think, but if I'm not mistaken, it's only American allowed to print money. Other countries not allowed. Am I right, Prof?
No. Other countries can also print, but we also can print if you want to. The issue is the American dollar is an international currency, number one. That means many central banks they will keep the dollar as a reserve currency. So there's a demand for it. And a lot of international assets are also priced in the dollar, you know, buildings or whatever, land people can, you know, businesses are sold in US dollars. And the other important thing is because of the petrodollar, countries need petroleum for as an engine of their economy. So if you need to buy petroleum, the petrodollar, you know, basically forces you to actually pay in the dollar. So you need to have dollar. So how can you have a dollar? Then you have to sell something to America, lah, you know. So the US dollar has an advantage like that, or any other you know, major global currency where central banks collect them or use them as a reserve currency, and they have that advantage. But if we do that, simply print a lot of ringgit, thinking you're going to take over the world, so you will create a lot of inflation in your own country.
So the money creation by each country, they can be provided that is properly managed, yeah, to ensure stability.
Correct, yeah.
Yes. If especially if you have a lot of exports, then you have a better chance of doing it, because you can contra against you know, the other currencies that's being used to pay you. For instance, in Japan, their recovery after the war, they printed more money. They printed more money, but at the same time, because there was a lot of exports, so they were getting a lot of dollars as well. You know, so it balances dia punya balance of trade tu lah. They got a positive balance. So the policy of the government at that point of time was memang to print more yen. But over time, towards the late 80s, early 90s, they were already facing the problem where, you know, their inflation was basically, the interest rate was very low, but you know, there were inflationary prices in terms of the housing bubble.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think our next question is, does the current banking system also make the rich become richer and poor become poorer? Prof, you want to answer that, Prof?
Dato has been there in the real, maybe. You want to answer that?
You go ahead, Prof. I will follow through from what.
Okay, if I were to answer this, you see, notice, we mentioned that 95% of money is created in the form of credit, right? In the form of credit. So, whom do you think the bank will give for the credit to, a rich person or a poor person for this thing? So, if I go to this thing, I must look credit worthy. Then only the bank will want to give the loan to me, whether business or whether individual, so on. So, the newly created money, the 95% of money that is created in the form of credit, it is normally given to the wealthier section of the economy, right? So the wealthier section gets it first, and then they will spend it. And if they tend to spend the money within their circle only, for example, they always buy, like the Quran says, why the wealth circulates among, so that the wealth does not circulate among only the wealthy among you, right? If they tend to, once getting the money and they tend to only circulate the money among themselves, then it will constantly create, you know, the gap, a widening gap between the rich and the poor. And this we have observed in almost every nation where the system is like this. So by design, if you ask me, the system does create the gap between the wealth and the poor, the wealthy and the poor. So the richer one get richer and the poor get richer. I mean the poorer. So it is by design. Yeah.
You want to add anything, Dr. Manap?
Yeah. See, I won't just agree with the statement to say that just because you are rich, you'll just get richer. You also have to manage your money.
Yeah, the
because if I were to use one example, which is the two Ambani brothers in India. Yeah, when the father passed away, each of them became a billionaire. But one brother later, I mean, the last few years became almost a bankrupt. He had to be helped by his brother. From billionaire, he became almost a bankrupt. So you still have to manage your money. Okay, that's number one. But if you put your money in assets, which is why anyone who really have extra money, you shouldn't keep that money. That money is going to lose in value. Okay, because of the inflation. Because as more money is being printed, the money that you have will definitely lose value. So you have to put that money in certain form of assets. Maybe let's say depending on each country, if let's say the demand for property is high. So I remember when I was working in London, when they were at that time, that was early 90s. They were they were still in recovering from their financial crisis, late 90s, early 90s, sorry. At that point of time, an apartment was only about 80,000 pounds, 50,000 pounds. At that time, the apartment that I stayed, the bank bought for about 200,000 pounds. Later, when the economy came back, there was high demand for these properties. The 200,000 pounds property became, I think, almost 800 to 900,000 pounds. The 80,000 unit became 500,000 pounds. So money should not be kept in itself because you will be losing value. So if you have money to save, buy properties. But it all depends. I won't say everywhere because property prices can drop as well. So it depends on whichever country that you are in. You got to look what are the assets, that is in demand, that can withstand the inflationary pressures.
Basically, change your fiat money to something that have tangible value.
Right.
Yeah, like gold and silver, also even property and so on. I think we'll go to the last question now. Yeah. What is the proper model of Islamic banking or Islamic finance system?
Okay, I'll give a academic answer lah. Then Dato can give a practical answer. The academic answer is, for practical for the path for Islamic banking, is for the Islamic banking to become something like an investment banking. Let me say like a fund manager. You should become like a fund manager. You pull the existing savings of people, and then you use the funds to invest in real businesses. Just like the real businesses, including even it can be stocks of companies. Yes, it can be stocks or even the real businesses. Then you diversify like that. So once you get enough the returns, then you share with the savers. So you move from the current structure of being a money creator. You're creating money and then lending out or investing. You move from that position to one who mobilizes actual savings and then invests in actual businesses. So you need to move in that direction. That is the path for Islamic banking.
Thank you, Prof. Dato, you want to add anything?
Oh, okay. Firstly, we go back to the Quran. Quran says trade is allowed. Yeah, riba is not allowed. So riba, how do we define riba? Is what I take what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has defined. Any loan with a any loan with a benefit. Okay, that's number one. The Quran says, Allah says, trade is allowed. Then there is a maxim. There is a maxim generally being used by scholars. Bil-ghum, al-ghum, bil-ghurm. Yeah, which is there is no profit without risk. Yeah, there is no profit without risk, which means that you have to take a position in the company, in the project that you want to invest. So the best is, of course, you can do a mudarabah where you put in capital. When you put in capital, then if the company does not do well, it's not properly managed, or due to some factors like what we're facing today, COVID, we will have to share the risk. Yeah, there is no profit without risk. Yeah? So there is one. Number two, you can do a Musharraka model. I like a Musharraka model in the sense that you participate in the business, you co-manage the business. The challenge is because many Muslims wants to take the higher profit, even though they need the capital, they do not want to share that profit. So it's difficult to get. But I can say that in instances, even as of now, I just give you two examples. There's these guys who came over to see me. They said, look, we have this project. It's not big. We need a certain amount of money. We've gone to the bank's not ready to finance us. Is there any way that you can help? So when I look at the project, I said, okay, since the payment is coming every 2 months, so they need 2 months cash flow. So, but what I do, I told them, I agree, but I'm not giving you the money. I will pay whatever resources that you need, and I want to be a signatory to the bank account. So in that sense, I play I finance via a Musharraka model. But right now, the last few months it was doing okay. Very well. But then now they are facing COVID, so the payments are not forthcoming. I'm affected as well. But then this is but if I give them a loan, it doesn't matter whether there is COVID or whatever not. They still have to pay me back the loan plus the profit. So in this instance, I've studied the model. Okay, fine. I may lose a little bit in terms of the profit, but in terms of capital, you still be intact. Then if you want, there are certain things that you want to do, you can buy. Let's say he wants to buy he wants to sell something. You can go and buy and sell it to him. So there are several ways and means to do it, but both parties, the ones that need the capital, must also be willing to do an Islamic model. If they are not willing to do it, they want more profits, then it will be very difficult.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Manap and Prof. Ahmad Kamil. I think on the last, with regard to the last question, I just want to add also, if there is no risk involved, then it's not business then.
Yep.
Okay. With that, I think we're going to end this webinar tonight. So thanks again to Sheikh Abdul Karim for organizing this webinar, and also to our panelists, Prof and Datuk. So I will end here. Thank you to all attendees who have been stay with us for I think like almost 3 hours now. So thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam.